Today, we're talking about, and I love the fact that they're able to put a press release saying remarkable in the headlines, especially when talking about a junior mining discovery. Pretty incredible coming out of the Gold Digger property.
They see a lot of visible gold here, and that's not really a big surprise, because if you look, way back to the first season, I think they drilled was 2021, and they did metallurgical work shortly after that because they did see a lot of visible gold in holes. They took my advice. They did a round of metallurgy, I think, in late 21 and early 22, and then they did another one in late 22 and early 23. And both rounds of testing just hands down demonstrated absolutely fantastic recoveries. The metallurgical results to date speak volumes about the very high quality.
You'll remember Dr. Quinton Henning was on a few weeks back, and we see great movement from both of those companies being received exceptionally well. We've been working with Goliath and own shares of Goliath for years and years. We believe in this story. We believe in the syndicate and the entire team that they've amassed. The big news, not only from back at the conferences, was the drill results, which were incredible, and we're waiting on a ton more. It was yesterday's announcement from McEwen Mining that they are coming in for, I think, 3%. So 10 million. And that is significant because once again, you start attracting the likes of the Dr. Quinton Henning, Rob McEwen, all these kinds of names into your deal. People take that as a sign because you're attracting savvy mining investors that have done very well in the past. Certainly is information on our Substack, and I mean there's a myriad of interviews that you can go through over the years where we've expressed our excitement as to what they were developing and they continue to develop. Part of what we do is we let people know companies that we love and we like. It's how we've done really well in the past. It's in part, we got to work with Great Bear years ago. We had great success with that. We have a framework, like a model that we use, and we have a network that we use. And that's a lot of the hard work and heavy lifting, is being able to rely on a lot of smart people and their expertise. That goes a long way. And we make sure for our subscribers that we're doing that. We're identifying risk. We're explaining the asymmetric possibility, really putting timeframes into perspective. Once you get some of these big players getting involved, as you would have saw with Great Bear, is people coming into the deal at different sections, adding more, I hate to use sort of credibility, but certainly adding a lot more flavor whenever you're getting further acknowledgement from mining billionaires and major investors saying, yes, we're acknowledging that you have something here. We want to let people know about that. Usually we keep that just for our subscribers, exactly who and how much we're buying. But we've been pretty vocal about those two. Hey everyone, happy Wednesday here. Having a very exciting conversation today, and one I've been looking forward to because we get to blend a lot of AI talk as well as mining. So we get both the tech and the foundation of kind of energy in the world and the transition. I love it when we can kind of meld these two worlds together because it's a way to bridge the conversation into AI, data storage, robots, you name it. All of it comes from the metals and the mining, the critical, minerals in the ground. And today we have co-founder and CEO Cody Zazulak from 4Point AI. We're real excited to dive into what they're doing, how they're applying machine learning and AI and big data towards mining projects. So, Cody, real pleasure for you to jump on here. We're real excited to talk to you about what you guys are up to.
Andrew, happy to be here. Glad to see you again as well.
Yes, great to see you. So, like I said, this is geophysical artificial intelligence, machine learning for mineral exploration. Let's tell me, what was the vision? What was that came to mind where you thought, I'm a tech guy, but this has we need to figure something out here for getting critical metals. Like, what was the thought process of formation of this company?
Yeah, let me give you a quick background. I've been in technology for coming up on 15 years now, and I've done everything under the sun, from working with big tech and starting my own startups and exiting companies and investing in startups. And when we dove into what was being developed across Canada for the mining sector in terms of technology, plus what was going on with AI in the world just a handful of years back, we saw a massive opportunity. And we went out and talked to a lot of exploration companies, a lot of operators, a lot of intermediates, and they were all telling us like this is the right way to do things. And so we put a team together. We've got some top minds working on what we're working on now, and yeah, we're just happy to be here a little over a year later.
There's so many questions that I have, so I'm trying to think of a good launching pad here. But maybe let's talk about your tech background first before we jump into exactly how this will help mining companies. Because I see that this latest company here, you're accepted to Techstars in like I think it was like under 60 days or something. And so maybe tell people what Techstars is, why that's significant, so they get a sense of who they're talking to and the level that you're playing at, really.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I make this analogy back and forth between the mining sector and the technology sector, where in mining, the viewers will understand you've got your exploration, your early stage companies, and then you've got your giant operators and producers, which in our world is the big tech and the startups. So we put together 4Point it started as a side project. We wanted to make sure we could do it to begin with and make sure that everything made sense and it was actually possible. But by the time that we actually incorporated, we were accepted into what's called a technology accelerator. And this was called Techstars. And Techstars is one of the largest tech accelerators and investors globally for early stage technology companies. And we got very fortunate because from incorporation to accepted into the program, we did it almost in record time. They told us we were in the top 3% fastest companies ever to be accepted into Techstars. It was about 48 days or so, plus or minus a day if you're going to count weekends and holidays. And we got very lucky that we got looped into the space program that's based in Los Angeles. So we got to see all the fantastic satellite companies that are putting together, all the fantastic quantum companies that were being put together and invested in. And we got thrown into the mix of those guys because there's plenty of application with satellite data, mining, et cetera, et cetera. So this was a fantastic experience for us. They've invested in us, of course. So we've got backing from Techstars, JP Morgan, handful of technology investors and other venture capital groups around the world, quite fortunately. And like I said, here we are about a year later.
It is wild because you can see the interweb and connection between, like you say, geospatial, whether that's for Internet of Things, whether that's the likes of Palantir, companies that are big data, but also geospatial. And just for those in the mining that are new that we have, geospatial work is exceptionally critical when you're looking at mining. And also, once again, the quality of your data, how much data you have, and then of course the time. I've read that somewhere sometimes it can take like a year in order to get mapping, look through mapping, sort through data. That alone, and not to get into too much detail about it, but that alone, if you're able to apply AI, I imagine cutting down that year would be significantly faster.
Here's the metric that we look at and we see as most important. It's widely known across the board when it comes to mining that an exploration project in total, on average these days, is taking about 15 years, which coming from the tech sector, we look at this number and we're like, well, you could build a successful billion-dollar company 3 times over in the process that it takes to get an exploration project off the ground, get it to the point of construction, go through feasibility, and then actually finally begin producing on it, which then takes another couple decades to fully see a return on one single potential mine. And when we look at this, we're like, there has to be a way to shorten the process here. And now, because we're able to point exploration companies and operators towards new deposits, you can significantly save time on this, and sometimes up to a decade in time if you do it at the right stage.
This is the part that really excites me because, once again, often it's big data that is the wall that stops from applying a lot of these things.
Sure.
You guys obviously can sign NDAs with whatever company or whatever. If with your program, you can work with a new mod and they'll say, yes, we'll open up our data to you. They're not going to open up their data to me, or even an analyst working over at PI or Sprott, maybe, but they're very, very cautious with their data. So whenever they have someone who comes in and says, no, hold on, wait a second, we have a platform and you do have one specifically geared towards gold. So we'll focus gold right now. Walk me through what that looks like when you're talking to a producer. We'll leave exploration out right for now.
Sure. The great thing about producers is that because they employ some technical talent in-house, and I don't mean to say anything negative about the exploration, but they tend to have better data rooms because they're already prepping it for some machine learning and or AI work. So these guys are fantastic to work with. It's obviously a much longer cycle to get a business deal done with it, but nonetheless, we love working with these guys. Now, the data that we see on hand, we prepped for this a year in advance, and we began downloading everything we could find all across Canada in terms of GIS databases. And then we did the same thing for Australia. We have quite literally everything on Australia, and nothing surprises us there anymore. And then obviously we've got data on a number of states across the US, so Nevada, Montana, Arizona, Alaska, obviously. And through doing so and treating this data appropriately and learning how to transform it into a way that a machine learning and or like AI process can take it in and do something with it. This is why the operators are seeing that we're a good option here, because we've already dealt with mountains and terabytes of data. So they come to us, they see this is what can be done. They know how to handle this data. They know how to keep it safe. This is also extremely important, is how you're actually handling it and maintaining cybersecurity over it. And then making sure that it's returned properly and even optimized for maybe the next pass through a year later.
What's really interesting, I want to focus just on the production side before we get into the exploration, because that's a whole other interesting, I would argue maybe more difficult, but you can tell me otherwise. If you've got a mine who's already producing, they have tons of data. They have tons. But it's also the data on the structure with the anomalies, with the geophysics, with the texturing. They have all the data specifically for that area, that location, the type of system, whether it's a porphyry system, whatever it is. They know, they have it. They can then say, there's no guesswork here. We know what we've got. Can you find the trend? Can you find where this is going off? Is this kind of how this works with a producer to add a lot of value, that we have specific data for your project, you're giving it, and we can have a better chance at predictability or with probabilities of finding streams or finding more deposit?
No, and you're exactly right about this. The thing that differentiates our workflow when it comes to exploration versus operators or producers, we don't need to tell them, we don't need to look at their data room and tell them what they already know about their site. They know almost all of it, almost up to the fence line. What's really important to them is now their potential to expand on their property. So the pie in the sky example that I usually give is, if you're going to look at Fort Knox and you're going to say, okay, this is a 20 square kilometer project that they know everything about because it's been in production for decades, I don't need to go there and tell them anything new about their site. But what they might want to do is they might want to learn about expanding their site in nearby properties or adjacent properties. And they might want to do it silently so that they're not sounding off alarm bells to competitors or other groups that have properties nearby that are also looking there. We can come in, we can look at the data, we can analyze it, we can compare it with what we've got, we can find similarities around the perimeter of their property and expand the radius by X amount that they need us to. And we can tell them, don't buy this site up there, buy this site down there. Yes. And now they're able to say, okay, now we can approach the purchasing with an upper hand, as opposed to sometimes the very difficult conversations and negotiation processes they have with competitors.
And I mean, the obvious too, the amount that they can move from the inferred resource to the indicated, I imagine that cuts down time quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're not going to, okay, it depends whether they've got exploration programs or whether they're solely focused on production. Depends on what they want to do. This is brand new news that we'll announce here. We're potentially starting some new work over in Europe, where we might end up becoming an exclusive provider to an entire country. These guys, for example, multi-billion-dollar mining company, but they
Yeah.
still have an exploration program with hundreds of targets across the entire country. Now, groups like that across Canada exist as well as in the US. These types of companies, they're saying, we want to innovate our exploration process despite being an operator. We don't want to send a team of geologists in helicopters all over the country to go take soil samples and then go through this 10 to 15-year process across our entire country. Let's start at the computer. Let's start at the desk. Let's start with the AI and immediately decide whether there's a potential or not before getting into the boots on the ground stage.
This is a great way to segue into the exploration side, because we'll see all the time, say from a junior perspective or exploration, someone hits lithium, hits gold at XYZ. Doesn't matter. In the middle of Saskatchewan, whatever. All of a sudden, there's a massive floodgate of people buying all property around there, staking. So it's interesting to see if you already have a program going that gives you, like say with 4.8, it gives you an advantage to go, we're going to stake that ahead of time. Like, this is inferring, or this is suggesting that this leads into here. And that is a very big advantage just practically when we see on the junior side of exploration that all of a sudden flags are up everywhere. We're going to go buy, go pick up a property nearby.
You're right about this, 100%. And this is, so you mentioned a little bit earlier where we are at with our gold product.
Yeah.
What we've actually done is we started with gold. So we talked to a number of gold exploration companies, did some predictions around the world, and quickly moved on to battery metals, to rare earths, to uranium, to a number of different things, because we felt that there was more urgency around these commodities because there's immediate need for it in this sustainability / electrification, era that we're in right now. But when it comes to what you had just mentioned about just sending out our AI to a specific region, we actually do this specifically to gold. Gold, we feel, doesn't have the urgency behind it like the lithiums, like the graphites, the coppers, the nickels, the rare earths, like I mentioned, or the uraniums. So when it comes to gold, to make the deal work with the companies that we're working with, we tell them, hey, we'll just go look. And if we find something, we'll let you know, but we want a slice of it. And most of the time, as I know you're aware, payments, financing in the mining sector can get really creative sometimes, which actually allows us to work on this royalties model. So this is kind of the distinction between how we work with base metals versus how we work with battery metals versus how we work with a number of different resources kind of across the board.
That's really interesting, putting on my kind of finance background, that you are willing to, in part, you tell me, I don't want to speak your business model, but you're willing to take part of the win. Like you're saying, listen, if we can add value, which we believe we are, you don't have to pay just an upfront cost and be too overbearing. Is that, no, we feel confident that we want a part of that stream, because as everyone knows in mining, if you have something, that's where the money's at. Like if you stream
100%.
on a property that like a net smelter royalty on a property, that's worth a ton. So it's really interesting to see that you're innovative enough on the financial end as well to be able to offer that to companies. That must be refreshing to them as well to go, oh, whoa.
It is. And I know that, when it comes to working with these exploration companies, despite the market caps, it doesn't always translate to a ton of cash on hand. And every exploration company is, just like startup companies, are continuously going through the fundraising process year round sometimes. And we want to make sure that this is as easily adopted for them as possible, because we know that trying to introduce a new technology to the entire mining process is nearly impossible and really tough to get into the market. So we've come up with this innovative approach, which not only allows us to work with these companies in a way that helps them out and shares the win, but also allows our company to scale infinitely. So we're very proud of that.
I love that idea, and that's I hadn't even thought of that angle. So I'm glad that you brought it up, because that is very innovative from a financial marketing background as well, or financial products development, to be able to integrate both of those. And it also, like you said, it goes over a giant issue that the underfunded junior market has, that you are able to work with someone in a more partner way than just here's our fee.
Exactly.
It's tough. I mean, mining isn't necessarily most forward thinking as far as tech goes. And I'm not being mean. I think everyone kind of knows that. It's hard to get once to move. I will put a caveat, and you probably will know this better than I. Your Nomonts, your BHPs, I'm sure that they're well ahead. They're just not very vocal about it. But most of the other ones, it's a little bit slower pace and process. And I'm sure that's the experience that you found, is that it's hard for them to go, oh, that sounds amazing. It's just a cost at this point. We need something that is not going to be a huge upfront cost, but it might end up saving them an awful lot in financings and stock dilution, everything else. If you can show this is adding value.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right on that. And we've seen it time and time again that it's not just the cost savings that's most important to them. This is huge. Obviously, their investors want to see the most return on investment as possible. But the time savings here is arguably the more important side of it, because when an exploration company gets funded, what private placement or whatever it comes out to be, now they've got all these flow through shares. They've got a budget that they actually have to spend. So they're going to spend it one way or another. And it makes just infinite more sense for them to spend it in an optimized roadmap instead of the same guesswork that the industry has been used to.
Yes, that's interesting as well. Okay, here's a more of an engineering question, just on the software side. Does this integrate with any the software for geochem, geophysical, any of that? Like, can any company go, oh, do I have to, is your platform, does it work with what we are currently using? If we're using an older software or newer software, does it matter?
No. And this is the most important part of this, is that we knew that if we came into this telling everybody, oh, you have to jump ship from your Leapfrogs or your ArcGIS or your QGIS or whatever your geo team is using, that it would be nearly impossible for this technology to adopt into their, we'll call it their tech stack or their process. So what we make sure to do is we do offer a standalone product that they can very easily show to their investors and their executives, and it's very pretty. But at the end of the day, arguably the more important part of it is that the geos can download their Leapfrog project folders. They can download whatever it needs to be to then upload into whatever GIS software they're using, whether it's 2D or 3D format, but you also get PDF reports from what we're doing as well, so that it can be easily shared across all stakeholders.
See, that's cool. That was a big part that I thought, okay, because I try to think of every stumbling block that you would have from a junior to a major going, oh, well, it doesn't integrate with what we're using. It's like, nope, that works as well. That's a huge.
That was from the ground up. That was the whole plan.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that also, like, you're constantly, I mean, because the speed at which AI, I mean, my Lord, you're constantly improving and developing along with the data as well. Like, how do you guys keep up with the pace that things are going while you're trying to grow the business?
We believe we're out ahead of it. We have a fantastic tech team. We have an incredible group of PhDs that are working on this constantly, and they are consistently pushing the possibilities of what we're building. Now, in addition to that, we also, I'm sure you've heard of it, you can at this point leverage things like ChatGPT or whatever it might be to do the simple development, the same work that a junior developer might come in and do for a tech company. But our PhDs are levels beyond that, and we strongly rely on their work and their expertise across machine learning as well as geology. So we mix those two together. We make sure that they've got all the support needed. And then on the simple front of just the web development, then we're also taking advantage of as much kind of consumer AI as possible. Now, that doesn't mean that our models, our personal models that we've built in-house, are ChatGPT whatsoever. They're all foundational, and we credit our team and our PhDs to what we've been able to accomplish to date, which has been incredible. But we lean on both sides, and this is very important, and that's how we stay out ahead.
Cause I'm going to bounce around a little bit on this. So let's talk about like more the tech side of things, because you have relationships or work or project with, we mentioned Techstars, that was incredible, but NVIDIA, AWS, Oracle,
Yep.
Crane.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about what, because those are big names and I don't want to be too like, yeah, promotional. Tell me what it is that you have with one or all.
Yeah. So a lot of this stems back to us, how quickly we're accepted into Techstars, and kind of like the weight of how quickly we are accepted into Techstars is that we caught the attention of AWS and Azure, and we had originally started on Oracle because they looked at what we were doing and they were saying, okay, we will award your team tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands in cloud compute. And this is going to allow your team to train your own in-house, they're called foundational models.
Yep.
We're on the state-of-the-art reinforcement learning models. So just like you hear in the news all the time, how maybe like Elon has been buying all these NVIDIA GPUs. We train on not nearly as many, but the exact same computers that he's training on. And by doing so, we're able to process all of this data that we mentioned earlier across all these different databases, as well as these companies' proprietary data sets. And this is where Amazon, Oracle, NVIDIA have come in to really help us because they believe in what we're doing, which has been incredible.
That's outstanding, because getting a hold of those chips is very, very difficult unless you're Elon Musk. So that's pretty wild that you're able to work. Yeah, maybe one day you'll be able to build out 100,000 NVIDIA GPUs.
Oh yeah, we're at 99 right now, so any day now.
That's still impressive, because once again, getting a handle on those is very critical. So let me put on my sci-fi hat here as well, and just talk about machine learning, AI right now. And once again, I'm a bit of a neophyte in this area. My understanding is that bigger is better. Still, you need big data, tons of data, and you need power. You need these chips to be able to train for the data to be for the machine learning. And I'm always careful with the terms. The difference between that big and then the dream, which everyone was thinking like, oh, my foundational model is learning itself, like actually learning, or an AGI agent. I know this is a big conversation. Where are we with that, like right now?
Sam Altman's going to tell you we're still a little bit away from AGI. I'm not going to disagree with him.
Yeah.
I think that would be a big mistake.
Yeah.
But what's very interesting about this is that despite us being away from, Terminator land, it is still incredibly valuable for companies to begin at least adopting this AI. The last thing they want to do is to be, the last adopters to this technology, and then for them to fall too far behind, because things are moving exponentially. So if, for example, if you were to start today and you look at things 6 months from now in AI adoption, your business will be so far ahead of a company that starts 3 months from now. They're not only twice ahead, they're 4 times ahead, 6 times ahead, because technology is advancing so quickly right now. And with NVIDIA stock going crazy, Tesla stock going crazy, every major company putting out these AI models, this is where we see a lot of investor money flowing into, because they see monstrous returns. But what comes with monstrous returns is real world value and development that happens. So it's important to get started on this, whether it's today or tomorrow or next week, but don't put this off, because you will fall behind.
And that's why I reached out to you guys, because the urgency of what's happening in this space, and then the application specifically for our space, the mining sector, it's the timing couldn't be better. Like everyone is, or pretty much everyone is well aware of critical metals now, that they're going, okay, we need to have these metals. We see, Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo reaching out to the US. Hey, we're willing to do a deal with you if you can help us, deal with Rwanda, deal with internal conflict and strife, whether it's Ukraine. And to avoid any kind of political talk, we see that these are discussions that are happening that are centered around energy, mining, minerals, because I don't think anyone has any other belief than we live in a very fractured period of time, and having a key pathway, a logistic pathway to these metals is critical, and the adoption at the same time of this massive flow of money into AI, and how that can help solve that specific problem. I think it's critical for a Canadian junior even to say, listen, is there a way we could implement this that it isn't going to blow out our share structure, or that can help us either redefine the deposit, possibly expand upon it, because that's an immediate reevaluation there. If they are able to show this AI model has shown this.
Yeah, you're spot on with this. We've seen sanctions, we've seen tariffs, we've seen a ton of new partnerships for good or for bad around the world in just recent times here, and it's very clear to see that. And this is, again, goes back to why we did this distinction between gold and battery metals or rare earths or uraniums, is because this energy dependent era that we're going into right now is critical beyond just the mining sector. Not a lot of people will understand that in 10 years from now, if you want to go into an Apple store and buy a MacBook off the shelf, you need to start now in the mining sector, or else we're going to run into major problems. And by us working alongside the Canadian government or whoever it might end up being, we need to make sure that we're pointing people towards deposits sustainably and effectively enough that align with the timelines necessary for our dependency on these resources. If we don't start now, we're going to dig, no pun intended, we're going to dig ourselves a deep hole, and we're going to be in some serious trouble. And it's happening in real time right now, whether we're depending on rare earths for DoD applications, or whether we're depending on, battery metals for electrification, sustainability, and energy consumption, or whatever it might be. To keep those lights on means starting as soon as possible.
It just made me think too, that timeline, it's painful, like seeing how long it takes.
It's scary.
It's scary. And we joke around about, an investor, especially nowadays with AI and the speed it going, oh my God, I'm in a stock for 3 months, 4 months, and we're talking 15 years. Like, it's horrifying for someone to think that, and especially you're coming from tech, if they hear, what? It's 15 years. Like, I'm retired in 15 years. What are you talking about? And I'm being facetious. I'm being a bit funny, but that timeline alone is huge. And if you can cut that in any way, that's amazing.
It really is scary. And here's the thing: when it comes to technology funding and financing, most of the time we're dealing with, the venture capitalists, the VCs that are purely focused on tech, and the way that they operate are on 10-year timelines for their fund, where they're going to invest nearly their entire fund for the first 5 years. They'll see a little bit of follow-on, of course, with companies that continue to grow. It's not all of them. But then they're seeing exits by year 7, by year 8, by year 9, by year 10. And for those same investors, that a good portion of the capital came from the mining sector, they're just not interested in those timelines anymore. I don't want to say easier, because it's not. It's equally as difficult, but it's just so much less attractive to tack on an extra 5 years to a return. It doesn't make any sense. So now when we're looking at companies that are tackling both sides of the equation, I'm plugging myself here, mining as well as technology, now you've created an attractive asset class that has those early returns inside of a sector that they were previously familiar with.
It's neat, because I always like to use the term asymmetric for whenever you do have a junior that finds something. You're talking asymmetric gain, and that's what is attractive to this space. But then you apply AI, you get an asymmetric on top of it. It's like an exponential, and that synergy between these two growing sectors, and also certainly in the forefront of people's minds, is so interesting. And it also made me think, when you're talking about not only timeframes, is that permitting becomes an issue. So if you're doing environmental work or you're doing anything, if you're able to, I imagine with this AI, you probably could add a shortened time frame for any environmental impact. Is that the case?
100%.
Okay.
This is another beauty about what we're doing, is that by shortening the timeline extensively, we're able to exactly track the reductions in CO2. We're able to exactly track deforestation, exactly track wildlife displacement. And these translate to not only like feel good environmental, but actual carbon credits that now mining companies can take advantage of while they're still offered. So this is an added selling point to making sure that you're getting into that you're adopting this technology early. Imagine it just points you to what you already know, but you can now shorten the timeline by a decade. You save a ton of money, potentially, depending on how much you want to spend, but you can also massively improve your ESG scoring.
That's huge, especially like say you're also using hydro. You could probably just flow that in. I just thought of this too off the top of my head. Can like not only for the tracking of CO2, but can you say with water? Can you also track flow of water, like water rights, where like because you might have to do a water study every year, and then someone challenges it, and even if it gets the pass, it goes, no, you got your permit, everything's good, you got an environmental go ahead. Someone might make you do it again in a year or 2 years. Is there a way to track, like, say, water flow as well?
Yeah, I mean, at like the basic level, you just do the math on how much time is reduced and then how much water usage you're going to end up saving in that time period. Now, I'm sure it gets much deeper to that, and we can slowly begin to bring this into our product offering. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense that it should be able to be tracked.
See, that's pretty wild. So, I mean, I can see already the more data you get, the more time you're in business, the results will become apparent. What do you think right now is the major obstacle right now, or is it maybe that people aren't aware that you can apply these effectively and efficiently? What are some of the things you're finding as a not an obstacle, but something you're running into, a challenge that you're running into in the space right now?
I think one of our challenges right now is the believability around whether AI is actually moving the needle in the mining space. And the tough part about this, and where we've made a clear distinction about how our team operates versus a number of other, fantastic groups out there, is that we've prioritized accuracy over everything versus scalability in other cases. And with scalability, you can throw a generalist model out there and you can say, this might be here, this might be here, this might be here. But by focusing on the accuracy, this is where we can leverage what we're doing. But it's a tough sell because they've been introduced to bad results for a number of years now. I just recently watched another panel with fantastic exploration group stating that they did some work back in 2019, and while it was cool, it didn't move the needle enough to feel like it was like AI had done anything. And unfortunately, it was just because of bad results, and it was because of the effort to make things overly scalable and too easy to use and just not functional enough for the geo team to get involved with. But by doing it our way, by each time a mining company comes to us with a new commodity and we then put all of our focus towards it, this is where we're dramatically seeing the difference in results.
And this is interesting too, because if you're working with someone, you say, well, we could put out a case study, it probably has to be somewhere down the line, because you would want to come out right away and say, look what we did. But the company might be like, well, whoa, slow down. Like we maybe don't want you to say that just quite yet. How does that flow? Because I'm sure there's situations where you come in, I'm not asking for names of companies, I would never do that, but where you've gone in and had success, shown them, and you're obviously going to want to put a case study, say, we worked with this and we did 20% cost savings. And they're saying, well, hold on. This is proprietary. We don't have to release this information. Is that part of the kind of what you're facing?
No, you're spot on about this. I preface every conversation that I have with a mining company we're not building a spy tool. You cannot come to us and say, what's going on over on this property? Show us the resources there. We would absolutely 100% never comply with those kinds of requests, because then nobody would ever trust us again in this sector, and trust is everything.
Yes.
But when it comes to the reason why you're able to do this and make it effective for you is because you're able to expand on the knowledge that you already know, or at least see more around it and expand your research area. So we have to be careful about it. We try not to publicize any results prior to a mining company doing their quarterly or doing their annual investor presentations. I don't want to steal the thunder for these exploration companies when they know that they've got 100 investors lined up to watch their annual report on, say, your platform or whatever else it might be. It's not my goal to steal their thunder. We wait for those guys to publish the results that they want to make public, and then we politely ask permission to publicize the case studies or the publishings or whatnot.
I know you mentioned 2019. I know a company, I won't mention them, that they were applying AI. Very interesting. They had some PhD mathematicians. It sounded exciting. And they kind of said, oh, we were disappointed. Once again, like 2019 was a long time ago. And in regards to AI, that's basically Stone Age. Like that, that's so far ago. Where do you see like predictive models? So not only just the machine learning data and whatnot, but also more predictive of, we think we're finding, we're nailing from past data. We can now predict where the deposit's going, leaning towards, it's following an alteration or whatever. How fast do you see that improving, and how fast has it improved over the last few years?
No, that's a great question. Speed is definitely a factor. We don't want to us, again, the results are the most important, whether it takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Fortunately, and again, not to say anything upsetting, but mining being a slower sector allows us it gives us the allowance to spend a little bit more time fine-tuning those results for the companies that we end up working with. If we had gone to another sector where everything is just like next, then maybe speed is the thing that they care about most. But fortunately, we're able to go talk to these companies. We're able to say, this is going to take 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks if we've got a PDAC thrown in the middle of it. And they're going to say, no problem. This is years ahead of our timeline anyways. Now, that being said, things are getting quicker, and it's because of a number of different things. It's because we've got great talent coming on board. It's because we have those great partners like AWS. It's because we're allowed to make, again, forgive my pun, but we're allowed to explore here on our side. And we've gotten enough freedom through funding and trust in the industry that lets us spend the time needed to make sure that our results are accurate, despite it taking a little bit of time.
And you're totally aligned with them as well. I mean, you're taking part of what you find. I mean, that is a model I think is really fascinating, because it's anyone who says, I've enough confidence in my business that I want to be involved in this, your business as a direct result, to me, that screams win. Like that's aligned forces that are synergistic at a real level. Not only is it a smart business, because if you're able to develop AI which finds deposits, that's like the asymmetric one is massive. So why wouldn't you want a part of that? And to show that confidence to a junior or to a producer to say, well, we're confident, so we're willing to, cut down your upfront costs because we see the bigger stream that we're going to get, the royalty or whatnot. That's where the cake is.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. There's not enough companies bringing this approach there's not enough companies emerging from the technology sector bringing this approach. And a lot of it is the pressure that comes from the VC funding. They want They want results immediately. But what we're saying is that we're staying true to our efforts here, and we want to prove that it's worthy to end up working with us. Now, again, when it comes to those resources, those batteries, those energy metals, those rare earths, uraniums, copper, nickel, graphite, whatever it might be, when we've got a wait list of companies, we have to put a charge in front of it, because we need to make sure that we're prioritizing what needs to be done. But when it comes to those other ones that give us the freedom to get creative with it, this is where we can prove ourselves across the company, not just in gold. It really shows the world that, hey, these guys are willing to stand behind their work. It's no different than hiring a realtor who's only going to get paid on a success fee. The same thing with a lot of companies or agencies that are out there to get you government grants, and they only get paid on a success fee. We've adopted the same model.
I mean, once again, I love the model. How does it work then? Let's just think, just practically, like, you come in or send someone in as a team to work with the geos, or do you kind of, or Zoom? I don't mean literally physically. Is that kind of how it works, or do you train them up on the model, or is it just you get the data, you present it to the geo team, or how does the flow work? Just because we have obviously a lot of mining president CEOs that watch, that listen, they would be thinking, well, how does this work, like synergistically, logistically, if we actually called you and said, let's go? So,
like, typically what we end up doing is, very first step is NDA. If a company wants NDA, no problem. Like I said, we're not building a spy tool here. We're not sharing data with anybody. We're taking care of everybody's data. Not only that, but we're transforming it in a way that when we give it back to them, it's even more valuable than what it started with, just on the data purely alone.
Yeah.
And then we'll look at a sample size of a mining company's data room, because oftentimes it's far too expansive for us to get a 1 day or 2 day turnaround on an answer if we go through the entire thing. So we'll look at a small portion of it, whether it's the drilling data or the geology or the geophysics or whatever it might be. We'll make sure that it works with what we can do. And then at that point, we'll get full access to a company's data room. And here's the reason why. When we negotiate those royalty deals, we tell a company, we need to know everything you know about your deposit already, so that when we go find something, there's no dispute about what you knew versus what we discovered. Yeah. If I come back in 3 weeks and say, oh my God, I've found this elephant of gold in the ground, and then a mining company says, well, we already knew about that entire thing. Now we've got a problem. So this is why we take a look at the entire data room to begin with. We model it out. We in 3D show what's known, and then we add on what's extra and now newly discovered. And then we optimize a drilling plan. At that point, we say, go check here, go check there. You don't need to do 30 drills this year, go do 7. Make sure that you go drill in this pattern. Do the first one, come back to us. We'll optimize the drilling pattern again. We'll retarget the entire property. And then at that point, by the end of the year, whatever's done, now they've expanded their deposit and increased the entire, economic feasibility of the project.
I love it. This is fascinating, and we've probably covered a lot for people. Like, I mean, I like the synergy between the two sectors, because I do, as a hobby, I love following AI as best I can. So for me, I mean, I get it. To me, it's clear as day. I get it. Of course, we'd like to have you on more, because we'll probably have to have this conversation a couple times with people, just so they fully understand how this is being implemented in such an important way. But let me leave this discussion, and then you'll get the final say as well. But you participated in Creative Destruction Labs Mineral Stream as well?
We didn't do CDL. We just did Techstars. We're in discussions with a number of other fantastic VCs or accelerator programs. We're in a very fortunate position where we're almost getting to pick and choose who we want to get to work with on the tech side of things. And then we've got this wait list of mining companies coming after us for what we can end up doing for them. So we're very fortunate. We're very thankful. We're very proud of our team about everything that we've done so far. And we're very excited about the work that we get to end up doing post PDAC coming up here. And we're equally as nervous about the amount of work we might have on our plate.
Are you? I assume you're probably at PDAC as well.
We'll be walking around. We don't have a booth or anything super flashy, but come find us. 100%. We'll show you what we're working on. We'll show you how we can 100% improve any kind of data quality or provide any value that we can for your exploration company and or operating mining company.
Outstanding. And right now you're private as well. Is that correct?
Entirely private. So this is something that is when I mentioned earlier on that we've got the same operatings versus big tech versus exploration versus startup companies. One of the major differences here is my tendency to stay private as long as possible. When it comes to the exploration space, like step one is launch on the TSX or CSE or wherever it might be. We tend to hold off for about as long as possible. And we go through what's like a pre-seed and a seed and then a series A and then eventually a series C and then maybe acquisition or IPO. We've been very fortunate. I won't speak about our rounds, but we've done very well so far. And this is something that we're going to stay true to ourselves with and making sure that we walk along the tech timeline in terms of when we go public.
And that's great, because that was the next question is it, I prefer a startup value in like a private equity sort of situation in almost most cases, especially when you're having a lot of success. But the idea is at some point, future date, that there would be an IPO. So if someone's looking and they go, oh, I like what you guys are doing. Is there any way for them to get involved? Is there any way, I don't want to talk about future rounds or anything like that, but can they reach out to you guys and go, listen, I'm not a mining company, but I love what you guys are doing. Can I get involved?
Yeah. What's very interesting is that we've seen a lot of, and I don't want to say anything bad here, but we've seen a lot of money potentially, unfortunately, move out of the mining space. And a lot of that money has been going to things like tech. But again, when these investors, they've made their fortunes in the mining sector, and now they see the intersection between our tech and the mining companies that we're helping out. It brings them back to their roots, and they're able to say, okay, if I were to invest in this tech company and I were to also invest into the mining company that this tech company is working with, now as an investor, my tech company shares are blowing up, my mining company shares are blowing up, and I'm potentially earning on the royalty sides of maybe both sides of the deal. And you've got a win-win-win, potentially then win-win-win-win-win situation for everybody involved. And it's if this is what you like to do and you want to see more progress being made on the tech front, this is the time to start looking at deals.
Well, Cody, this was awesome. I really love this conversation. It's a lot of fun because it is that synergy of what can be done and how important all this is. We need the critical metals just for AI to work, to create the quantum chips, to create all the hardware, but we also now using it to find the stuff that we need to make all the things. And I love that circular economy and how it works. And also that asymmetric opportunity you're creating, not only for juniors, but for producers. We're real excited about what you're up to. And I really appreciate you informing us, teaching us a little bit as well, and letting a lot of people know that you're out there. And I think that, like you said, you're probably going to be running into more of a time constraint than anything else after PDAC. The amount of companies reaching out to you is probably a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And Andrew, I really appreciate getting to have this conversation with you. If anybody wants to come find us at the conference, you can reach out to us over LinkedIn. You can send me an email. I'm sure it'll be provided to you by Andrew if need be. And then, looking forward to any future conversations for sure. Excellent. And I'm certainly going to send you a couple people that to the booth to go meet as well, because they're going to want to. I'm going to send this directly to them as well. But wonderful. Thanks so much, Cody. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Andrew. All the best. Take care. Okay. Bye. Part of what we do is we let people know companies that we love and we like. It's how we've done really well in the past. We have a framework, like a model that we use, and we have a network that we use. That's a lot of the hard work and heavy lifting.
is being able to rely on a lot of smart people and their expertise. And we make sure for our subscribers that we're doing that. We're identifying risk, explaining the asymmetric possibility, really putting timeframes into perspective. Usually we keep that just for our subscribers, exactly who and how much we're buying. You'll remember Dr. Quinton Henning was on a few weeks back.
They did metallurgical work shortly after that because they did see a lot of visible gold. They took my advice. They did a round of metallurgy, I think in late 21 and early 22, and then they did another one in late 22 and early 23. And both rounds of testing just hands down demonstrated absolutely fantastic recoveries. The metallurgical results to date speak volumes about the very high quality.
We worked with Goliath and owned shares of Goliath for years and years. We believe in this story. The big news was the drill results, which were incredible, and we're waiting on a ton more. McEwen Mining, that they are coming in for, I think, 3%. So 10 million. And that is significant. People take that as a sign because you're attracting savvy mining investors that have done very well in the past.